On today's episode, we're going to catch up with former Edmonton Oiler and current assistant coach of the Tucson Roadrunners. Let's go inside the coach's room. Well, welcome inside the coach's room. I'm Petey. And I know I've been breaking down a lot of game film over the last few months, but now the Stanley Cup's over, and it's been awarded, and it's time to do some talking to some coaches. We're going to do that over the summer, so make sure you subscribe to Inside the Coaches Room. We're going to check in with coaches at every level and at every walk of life in hockey, just to kind of see what goes on inside the coach room. We're going to probably talk to a few players, too, so make sure you subscribe. Today, we're talking to Zack Stortini. I thought it was appropriate with the Edmonton Oilers making it to the Stanley Cup final. I thought I'd go back to Zack Stortini, a former Edmonton Oiler third-round pick back in 2003 of the Oilers, an OHL player back in Sudbury, played for the Oilers from 2006 to 2011, played over 250 games in the National Hockey League, and had over 725 penalty minutes. So I got a chance to talk to Zack about that transition. And not just a transition from player to coach, but from tough guy to coach, and see how that went for Zack. And it was really interesting. He was an interesting guy, and I tell you what, he really cares about the job he's in and the role he's in. So without further ado, let's check out the interview with Zack Stortini. Well, welcome back inside the coach's room. I'm Petey, and I apologize in advance for all of the noise, but we are at the NHL Coaches Association's Global Coaches Clinic. So it's a little noisy, got a lot of activity going on. I got another special guest here, and former NHL player and current assistant coach of the Tucson Roadrunners, Zack Stortini. Zack, thanks for taking the time today. How's it going so far at the Coaches Clinic today?
It's going great. I mean, it's a fantastic event. Been coming a number of years now, and it's great to see familiar faces, meet new people, and learn a bunch from everybody here.
How did you make that transition from player? Like, did you know you wanted to be a coach when you finished your playing career?
I was very fortunate, towards the end of my playing career, I spent more time off the ice probably than on the ice, and you kind of read into that situation as that comes to a twilight. And the coaching staff in Charlotte, where I finished, was very generous helping me make that transition. Mike Vellucci and Ryan Warsofsky were fantastic, peeling back the curtain, showing me what it's like to be a coach at the pro level. And, it was something that I always looked at, but took a shining to, coming towards the end of my career. I think it's a great opportunity to get back to the game, to help young players, and to be involved in the game that you so deeply are passionate about. And, those three things drive you every day.
Yeah, it's funny, though, because not everybody that played can make that transition. I think it's hard. I think your personality's got to be able to handle the ups and downs of being a coach. So how do you approach developing young players? And that's really your job in the American League.
You're bang on with that. It is our job to make sure that players are growing and getting better each and every day. And I think it's a situation where there's great people in the game of hockey, and you gravitate to these people to help them, learn lessons and learn from those mistakes that you made, and to avoid those, and to help them achieve their dreams. And so many times as a player you get asked, like, oh, who do you think in your career? And the simple answer is always your parents, because a lot of times I was very fortunate that my parents helped me with a great upbringing to be a leader. But as a player, there's a number of people that have their hands in your development, in your path, and to name them all is to do a disservice. And if I could be somebody on someone else's journey to help them achieve their goal, I'd be doing my job. And that's something that I'm passionate about, and something that I think is so great about hockey and life, is to make a difference in somebody else's life positively.
One of the things I look at the Utah Hockey Club, and how important development has been for Bill Armstrong and his staff. And so I look at your role within their organization down in Tucson, and you're helping these young players not just be better hockey players, because that's important. You need to be a good player. But what is your life experience been able to do to help these kids off the ice and really help them mature, not just as hockey players, but as people and men, and learning what to expect in the pro game?
That's a great question, and I think it's something along the lines of perseverance. I'm a player that didn't take an easy route. Was somebody that had to grind and literally fight and battle, to achieve their goal in playing the NHL. And to play the pro game, you have to do that on a consistent basis. And I think that's something that every day we preach, the difficulty that needs to be overcome to be successful. And Bill has assembled an incredible staff with Utah, where that is constantly being driven home. The fight, the battle, the passion that's required, to be a better person, a better hockey player each and every day. And we're very lucky in Tucson to have a great group of young men there that display that, both in practice, in game situations, and off the ice.
It's funny because when you were a player, and I remember you as a player, the reality is you're tough. I mean, you're a tough guy, and you look at your penalty minutes. You have over 200 penalty minutes in a season in the NHL. You're tough. And
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's true. It's true. I didn't like you much because I was in Arizona, but beside the point. But that was kind of your game. And let's be honest, that style of hockey was much more prevalent when you were playing. Have you seen the evolution of that player's role changing in the National Hockey League?
I think it's something that's bigger than a singular role. I think I appreciate a tough hockey player. I appreciate a tough person. And like we tell our guys, it's something that it's more than just the role to be tough. Somebody that sticks up for a teammate and fights is tough. Somebody that blocks a shot is tough. A goalie that bounces back from a tough game is tough. Guys that go in as an undersized player to recover a puck against a bigger player, that's tough.
Yeah.
A guy that perseveres through a goal scoring drought, that's tough. A guy that comes to the rink every day and works his butt off in the gym on the ice and puts the extra effort in, that's being tough. And it's all those little things like that equate to somebody who's a tough hockey player. I love that. That's what you value.
And I look at you again. We talk about that style of player. Where did you learn the X's and O's part of it that allowed you to be a coach? And I'm not being funny because there are a lot of players that don't pay attention and they don't know the intricacies, and not only just for themselves, but how to be able to teach that to somebody else. Where do you credit your X's and O's knowledge to becoming a coach?
I think two things that come to mind. One is, the willingness to learn and develop to get better from other coaches, other players, and seeing what they're going through. The second part is always being mindful and cognizant of that. You go back to that playing career, and there's always a moniker of, the tough guy. Maybe it doesn't know the system or whatever it might be, but I think that's kind of more what you're hinting at. But I think it's the opposite. If you don't know where to stand,
then you're not going to get the ice time.
That's exactly. Your feet aren't fast enough to keep up. Your mind's not quick enough, or your hands aren't good enough. So you have to be.
You better be right.
Exactly. You're hit it right on the head. So it's always been a strength. I think is the attention to detail, especially in system play, working with teammates in that. I think as a coach, it's a lot easier to articulate it than it is to actually go out and do it. If I had the physical skill to actually do it, I think it might still be playing. God bless my heart.
I believe you would be.
No, I don't think so.
I want to talk about your playing too, because you were drafted. You're an Ontario kid, and you were drafted by the Edmonton Oilers. And a majority of your career is playing out in Edmonton. And now you're watching, this is a new generation of Oilers team and a new building and getting all of the Connor McDavid era. Have you been following this team through the playoffs at all?
I have. I'm still an Oilers fan at times. And, I think the players that they have there, the people that they have there, are incredible to watch. Very entertaining. I think anytime that you see that transformation that the Oilers organization has gone through, being the final team playing here in Canada, I think there's a lot of support and passion behind them. It's fun to watch two great teams duke it out like they are in the finals. I mean, you look at the adjustments and the changes that are made in game, the way that players have elevated their game to compete at the highest level to win the Stanley Cup. It's incredible.
I've spent most of my career working in Arizona, and some really good players went through the Kachuk, Roenick, Doan. They had some really good players, they had good coaches. We didn't have quite the success team-wise that you're seeing in Edmonton now. But more to the point, what's it like playing in a market where you're under the microscope? And Edmonton is one of those places. It's a great hockey community, a passionate fan base. Arizona, Shane Doan could walk down the street. Nobody knew who he was, and he didn't get bothered at dinner. What's it like playing in a hockey market like Edmonton?
I think it's a dream come true. I think anytime that you are elevated to that stature in a community, it's a privilege, to
Yeah.
be able to walk down the street, as you would say, and to be recognized and be noticed as a role model, hopefully for young players coming up or fans to cheer for. It's an incredible privilege and opportunity. So, if you have that ability in the game of hockey to use that and give back, and you see guys do it all the time, and they're raising money for worthy causes, or they're going to charities or hospitals and doing visits and giving back to the community that supports them. I think that's a huge power that is possessed.
Yeah, it's funny because you were playing. You started off in the early 2000s when you were in Edmonton, and you look at the way the game has changed now, and it's. I remember being in the locker room during that time, and rookies didn't want to walk through the room. Like, it was tough and it was scary, and you'd get yelled at. The rookies are carrying the bags off the bus. You had to be last in line at everything, at the meals, on and off the plane. As always, the rookies were treated differently. It's not that way anymore. It's now the rookies are running the league. One, when did that change? And is it good for the game? And is it okay for the game that it's changed a little bit?
I think the game is always changing. The game's always adapting, and sometimes it follows social norms in society, and sometimes it deviates a little bit. And I'm always reminded of Mike Keenan had a great quote recently where a reporter asked him, can he coach in today's game? And his answer was, of course, because he was able to adapt throughout the decades that he coached. And I love that because you always have to adapt. You always have to change. And, you're always working with the people around you to provide a great environment to better the other people around you and to better the game. And I think you look back at some of those hard life lessons,
Yep.
of that positive peer pressure, call it, and it makes you more respectful of guys' experience and the situation that they're in. And I think you're always respectful of people that are leaders, and a leader's job is to take care of other people, and they do it in different ways. A goal scorer can take care of a tough guy by bailing him out. He gets a bad penalty, a goal scorer scores a goal on the PK, or the shift right after, he bails him out of that situation, wins the game, and you don't think about it anymore, and there's different ways that leaders can lead. And I think anytime that you're leading people in a positive manner to be better as a person, as an individual, or as a team, I think you're on the right track, and as long as it's done respectfully.
It's funny because you talk about Mike Keenan and you talk about the ability to coach now. And I think what's happened recently, you've seen the number of coaches that have been let go. And I go back again to when you were in the league, the coaches could coach different. And I think the coach held the hammer, and I think the coaches, their word was their word, and they didn't really care what you. And I don't want to say they don't care. You think that's insensitive, but they were the boss, and that's how you just did things, and the players went along with that. Now you see players have a bigger voice, and so I think that the coaches have had to adapt. So when you take that experience from your life, how do you approach the kids you're coaching today, and your ability to communicate with those kids?
I think at the end of the day, you're always coaching people, you're always working with people, and it's the type of relationship that you build with them that is important. Anytime that you're in a battle, in a fight, and asking somebody to do something that's very difficult, there has to be a why, why are you doing it, and there's enough incentive out there, and players have enough incentive, whether it's for their family or, monetarily or whatever it might be, that those are easily to point out. But at the end of the day, I think there's deeper meaning in giving it your all, in giving it the best you absolutely have. And you're in that battle with them, you're in the trenches with them. That's the beauty about coaching. You're right down there in the trenches with them. And I think you look at today's coach, they're more cognizant of the relationships, of that power of positivity than they ever have been. And I think the intentions are still the same, but the way it's delivered has changed, and I think it's for the better.
Yeah.
I think it's for the positive. Yeah,
I do too. Do you enjoy what you do?
I love it.
Do you like
I
coaching
love
the kids?
it. I love it.
Yeah, and you can see you're passionate right now. So what's next? You've got the coaches clinic now. What's next on your schedule of events as the summer continues for the Tucson Roadrunners?
We have a development camp for the Utah Mammoth coming up in Salt Lake City, so I'll be attending that. Very fortunate to be able to see the next generation of players coming in.
There's some good players coming in that organization.
A lot of exciting players coming in.
That's tough, though, coaching the American League. One of the things in the American League, the difficulties are your team can change roster from a Tuesday to a Friday based on injuries in Utah, and you really never know what you're going into a game with. Could change that morning. You could get that phone call. How is that, the fine line of winning and losing, but you're really not in control?
I mean, anytime a roster changes or players move, it's a challenge. And when you see the types of movement that happen, a lot of times it's positive. I mean, if we lose a player because he's being called up, that's unbelievable. That's incredible. That's what we want. We want players to succeed to get to the next level. So you're almost checking the boxes, a positive pro of that situation, and then you deal with it. And that's part of the challenges of the job. It's more than the X's and O's. It's more than, the relationships. It's all those things combined, plus the ability to react in real time with a professional result or a professional solution. Again, I'll steal from another coach and say, we're solution based. Okay, what do we do? How do we figure this out? What do we do next?
And those challenges make you better. And I know whatever work you're in, those challenges make you better. And if you don't figure out a way to fix those challenges, then you can't be successful in what you do. I do want to go back to a time when when I left, I finished at the Coyotes in 2020. And I think some of the fun had left the game. I think money helped change things. I think the competitive nature of people, their performance, and protein bars and protein shakes, and it just changed. And the culture has changed. Not better or worse, just different. But you came in an era when there was still fun. And I think I want to be able to share some of that fun, because I imagine you were a fun guy.
I appreciate the compliment.
So one of the things we always talk about on here, and we try to close the show with, is what we call them tales from the road. And it's something to take the people, the fans listening, behind the curtain. And there were a lot of pranks in the National Hockey League. And there's been some good ones, and there's been some bad ones. We've talked about them on the show. And again, family show, so we'll keep that in mind. We're not trying to bury any guys here. But can you think of an instance where either you pranked somebody, or someone on your team was pranked, or something where you actually had fun on the road?
I can tell you this. Guys are exactly how you would think.
They're kids.
Yes, exactly. You hit it.
You're kids.
Exactly. Hockey's a game. It's meant to be fun. And when guys are having fun on the ice, off the ice, together as a unit, that's where you find the success. And you hit the nail right on the head where it's meant to be fun. The story that I'll share with you that is appropriate for this show, it goes back to junior. And I don't want to date myself, but the early 2000s. It's a bit ago now, yeah. And you'd always have pregame meals together. So you'd have pregame meal. It's a nice, fancy Italian restaurant, the Crusoe Club. Yeah, they make a great pasta and meatballs. And we would go there for pregame, hop on the bus, and you drive to the city, play your game. So guys would get some ideas and stuff like that. Anyway, we would take a meatball from the restaurant, and you'd slide it into your teammate's jacket because you'd have it on the back of the seat. So he put his jacket on, go to put his hand in his pocket, and all of a sudden you pull out a meatball. Yeah, so kind of one of those ones. All good fun.
But that's good.
It's awesome. Nobody gets hurt.
No.
Yeah, it's all in good fun. It turns into pass the meatball. Who has a meatball by the end of the trip?
See, and that's the kind of stuff that I don't. If you did that to a player today, in his $5,000 suit, he would lose his mind. And
we were wearing track suits in all fairness. So.
but I was on a plane when a guy cut another guy's tie off.
Okay.
And you can't do that today, because guys their custom suits and custom ties. Again, it's just different. It's a different era, and it was okay to have fun. And I think once people understood, like shoe check. We used to talk about shoe checks on the show, the taking of the glasses, and I used to have, if I had a glass here, I'd say, "What does that mean?"
Yeah, then all of a sudden you're looking
know exactly what a shoe check is.
Yeah.
I don't know if that still happens. I hope it does.
It does.
I hope guys are still carrying that tradition on into the National Hockey League and the American League. I want people to have fun. It's a game.
Yeah.
Enjoy what you're doing and have fun. Zach, you're doing a great job down there, and you're doing a real important job.
because you're making men, not just hockey players. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you
I
for having
appreciate
me.
having you on. And,
Well, I want to thank Zach
thanks.
for taking the time. I really appreciate him. And I tell you what, he's a guy you can tell he's really passionate about what he does. And I think you're going to find that with a lot of coaches. And I think over the summer, we're going to get an opportunity to talk to coaches. I might talk systems. I might not. I want to see their path, their journeys, and how they are different from one guy to the next. So make sure you subscribe to Inside the Coaches Room. Leave it a like, and it really helps out as we're trying to grow this channel and get this channel started. We are going to break down plays. We are going to talk about the rules. We are going to teach the game of hockey a little bit better over the next 3 months so that by the time they're ready to drop the puck for the NHL season in 2025-26 in October, everybody's going to be ready and know what to look for and know how to watch the fastest game on ice. Thanks for coming inside the coach's room with me, and thanks again to Zack Stortini. Keep your eye open because there's more interviews coming often inside the coach's room. Thanks for joining me. I'm Petey, and we'll see you at the rink.